Hello there. In this video, we're going to talk about mixed numbers and improper fractions. And I really want to talk about which do you prefer? Because I've noticed something throughout my career that there is a tendency to have a preference for a certain group of teachers and a preference for me to have that's completely different than what they want. So I'm going to talk about the number 1 3/4. And what I want to start by doing is illustrating this in a visual diagram. Well, I like to illustrate this as a circle. And we got that will be divided into quarters. And we'll actually have two circles because we got one that's full. So I'll go ahead and take the time to shade in each quarter of this circle because that's 4 quarters. And then I have a second circle also divided into quarters. Did I need to divide this first one into quarters if I'm shading the whole thing? Not necessarily, but I'm doing it for visual purposes. And we'll pretend these circles are equal. And now I'll shade in 3 additional quarters. So first of all, we can kind of start to see where the algorithm of converting from mixed number to improper fraction comes from. It comes from the fact that we take the 1 and we multiply by whatever the denominator is. And then we are going to add the remainder, which is the 3 remaining parts. And then our fraction, once we do that computation, will be still out of the same 4 parts. So 1 times 4 is 4 plus 3, and that gives us 7 over 4. Now, the main goal of this is not to emphasize what the algorithm is, but where does this come from? This comes from the fact that we have 1 that is 4 quarters. So that's why we do the 1 times 4. We have 1 whole part where all 4 parts are shaded in. And this is why it's good to illustrate the diagram as being 4 parts that are shaded in. And then on top of that, we add 3 because we have the additional 3 parts in our second circle. And this gives us 7/4. And when we draw it out, we can count them up. There are 7 shaded quarter parts. Now, the question I asked at the beginning of this video is, which do you prefer? I know junior high teachers I've worked out with throughout my career prefer the mixed numbers. It's more accurate, and I understand why. You have 1 whole part with additional 3 quarters. It's more accurate in representing what we want to tell our audience. However, I prefer the 7 quarters. And I'll tell you why. When you get into more forms of advanced math, like pre-calculus, like calculus, and even beyond that, adding fractions is a very common thing to do. For example, x to the power of 1/2 is a thing, and I'm going to discuss that in a later video. X with an exponent of 3/2 is a thing. So you can have fractional exponents, and this comes up a lot of times in more advanced forms, but what we don't write is x to the 1 1/2 power. It looks too clunky. 3/2 and 1 1/2 are equivalent fractions, but it just doesn't look right. So it looks better when we write it as improper fractions. And being a high school math teacher who teaches more advanced forms of math, I prefer the improper fraction. It's not inaccurate to describe something as 7/4. We do have 7 quarters shaded in our diagram. So think about it. What do you prefer in the comment section down below? Do you prefer mixed numbers? Do you prefer improper fractions, and why? And I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.